Of U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan has triggered China's anger.
Metro Globe Network's Krishna earlier today spoke with Chinese Ambassador to Indonesia Lu Kang, discussing Pelosi's visit to Taiwan and also how all parties involved can help maintain peace and stability in the region to promote economic recovery and also avoid a further worsening of the global economic condition.
U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi recently made a visit to Taiwan. Geopolitical tensions have been high since then. Now, to get a very important perspective on the situation, I am joined by His Excellency, China's Ambassador to Indonesia, Mr. Ambassador Lu Kang. Hi, Your Excellencies. Thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Good morning, Krishna.
Right, so let's get right into it. In regards to Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan and its aftermath, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken recently reaffirmed the U.S. is committed to the One China policy, conveying a message that peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region is in the interest of all. What is your response to this, Mr. Ambassador?
Okay, everybody now is looking at what will be the aftermath of Speaker Pelosi's visit to China's Taiwan. Actually, this visit is by nature an attempt to instigate separatist activities to serve America's own geopolitical agenda. So actually, it is an infringing upon China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. And definitely that's a very severe violation of basic norms governing international relations. Actually, it is also a very irresponsible, provocative action to stir up confrontation and intensify the instability, especially in this region. I think this move once again puts the integrity of the American governments in question. You just mentioned that. Secretary Blinken said that actually they still commit to the One China policy. But now you can see all the moves taken by the American administration is aimed at hollow out their One China policy. Actually, that's very irresponsible. You can see that the Americans have already repeatedly mentioned again that they commit themselves to the One China policy, and they commit to only unofficial relations. For example, the people to people, the commercial business relations with the people on Taiwan within the One China framework. But then you see they send their number three politician in a military aircraft to China's Taiwan island. And then they still characterize it as unofficial. That sounds very ridiculous, to be honest. The last thing I would like to say, this is another proof to keep all countries alert on the brinkmanship of the American policy on today's international arena.
Right, Mr. Ambassador, as we know, tensions are quite high at the moment, and the PLA is conducting military exercises around Taiwan. On Thursday, there were precision missile strikes into the Taiwan Strait. Mr. Ambassador, can you tell us what is the goal of these military exercises?
I think for all countries around the world, we have to admit that China is just like all other countries. We are justified to take any necessary measures to safeguard our own sovereignty and territorial integrity and to attack against all those try to provoke China's core interests. So let me put it very simple. China's legitimate actions are not going to stop until the separatist activities on China's Taiwan island are stopped, until the American attempt to stir up, to incite the separatist plot in China are stopped.
But right now it is military exercises, Mr. Ambassador. What are the chances of it going further than just exercises?
I've already said that actually before Speaker Pelosi's visit to China's Taiwan island, we have already issued our warning again and again to the American authorities and to the authorities on the Taiwan island. Don't play the fire. So since they just carry out their own plot, these kind of activities, in spite of the repeated warning, definitely, as I just mentioned, China's actions will not stop until their separatist move are stopped.
Okay, Mr. Ambassador. Indonesia's Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi, she reiterated that peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region is key. Indo-Pacific is the future of the world. So right now, what is needed to maintain stability in the region, Mr. Ambassador?
Actually, China, just like all the other countries in this region, we care very much. We care than anybody outside this region about the peace, stability, and prosperity in this region. So that's why today, on almost all the multilateral arena, you could see that China will be among those advocates focus on international economic cooperation. In contrast to some other forces who will always try to highlight security tension, to highlight bloc politics, to highlight military confrontation, especially in this region. So I think the incident by Speaker Pelosi's visit to Taiwan Island, China's Taiwan Island, is another proof that countries around the world, especially in this region, we should unite together to stop, to prevent any further attempt by any forces to incite, to instigate separatist activities in other countries, to stop any attempt to infringe upon the domestic affairs of any other countries. That will bring about a sustainable stability and development in the region. Thank you, Chris.
Right, so stability, of course, as you mentioned, is very important. In regards to this, at the moment, is there a chance for a diplomatic dialogue or diplomatic solution, Mr. Ambassador?
I think China is not the one who take the provocative action. China is the one justified to take legitimate actions irresponsible to provocative action against China. We have already made it clear. So long as those advocate for separatist moves on China's Taiwan Island, and so long as those support, encourage, condone this kind of activity, so long as they cease those irresponsible and risky actions, there will be great chance for stability in this region.
Okay. At this very moment, has there been any sort of efforts for kind of diplomatic talks, Mr. Ambassador?
I think I made myself very clear. The ball is in the court of those who initiate the provocative actions.
Okay, Mr. Ambassador. Now, as we know, Indonesia's President Joko Widodo recently visited China. Now, ties were bolstered. There were more trade commitments made, especially in regards to CPO. Now, will this situation impact Indonesia-China trade, and what efforts can be made to ensure that it does not hurt it, Mr. Ambassador?
I think China and Indonesia were both developing countries. We now put at very high priority both our development agenda. We have a lot of common interests. That's why China and Indonesia, we could come very quickly, actually, to the agreement to work more closely on economic cooperation and economic development. I don't think from the perspective of our respective and common interests, I don't think this will be affected by any attempt from outside.
Right, so just to reaffirm, Indonesia-China ties will remain strong in spite of these tensions.
I strongly believe so. I hope that's also what my Indonesian colleagues will also insist on.
Okay, Mr. Ambassador, but as we know, the global economy right now is in dire condition at the moment. There's recession looming in many countries. Now, as we know, Taiwan is a major producer of semiconductors, and there's already global shortage of semiconductor chips. How will China ensure that this key industry will not be affected by this current tensions?
Actually, we have to look in a bigger picture. As I said, China will be last to be very easy with the further deterioration of the international economic situation. That's why, as I explained to you a little bit earlier, China has always been among those advocates economic cooperation on all the international multilateral arena. So now the problem is that there are forces, especially there are forces outside this region, they would like to see the intensification of the situation. They would put at higher priority of the bloc politics rather than economic cooperation in this region. So instead of just looking at a specific industry and a specific area, we have to make sure that efforts, especially by countries in this region, should be focused on to create a stable and more peaceful, more sustainable, peaceful environment for the situation. We should work together to prevent any provocative measures by any forces, especially those forces try to encourage the separatist forces activities in this region. I think Indonesia is also a country that used to be a victim that's still under the risk of separatist activities. It's not difficult for Indonesian people to appreciate that.
Right, but as you mentioned earlier, the bigger picture is what's needed. So from China's point of view, economics and the global economy, the health of the global economy is a very important factor to make further steps, Mr. Ambassador.
Yeah, we always put at the top priority of the economic development. But to be honest, just like all the other countries, when it comes to questions, when it comes to the core concern concerning one country's sovereignty and territorial integrity, I think all countries are legitimate, are justified to take any necessary measures to preserve its core interests. That's the case for China, that's the case for all other